folks, welcome to Set Apart Homestead. This is Travis here at the Prepared Homestead. Thank you for stopping by and watching the video. Gonna be talking about something that was in the news. You know how the news cycle goes. There's always something new and exciting, and right now all the excitement is, Joe Biden picking his vice presidential, running mate. Big deal, who cares? At least that's what I say. But that's not what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about something that was in the news cycle about a week ago. And it was the big, massive explosion that happened in Beirut, Lebanon. And I touched on it when it happened, and I said I'd probably come back to it. And so today is the video to come back to it. Before I get started, if you would, there's no pressure at all, to go ahead and like the video and subscribe to the channel. Would sure appreciate it. It helps get the message out a little bit more about the videos that I make. So there's a little bit more information that's come out on the massive explosion that happened in Beirut. Officially. Unofficially, there's a lot of speculation, a lot of conspiracy that's going on. And so I'm going to try to not focus on the conspiracy, because some of what I've looked at just doesn't seem to hold water. But there is definitely some credible evidence, and then there's some it's just logic. It's just logical of what's going on. And I know that we focus a lot on what goes on here in the States, and especially as preppers and as homesteaders, that's what directly affects us, whether it's news or environment, weather, or just, whatever's going on. But, globally, things can certainly affect us also. And I think what's happening in Lebanon right now is something that we all need to keep our eye on, because it could affect us. And if nothing else, we might be able to learn something from it. Remember what's going on down in Venezuela, that we need to remember that of how it affected them and how it's still affecting them. So that we can also learn from that. So of course you all know the massive explosion, and we'll call it that. We're not going to call it a bombing. There's not been a lot of hardcore evidence that it was a bomb. I know there was a video floating around for a while, and it's pretty much been debunked that video was doctored. So I have not seen any credible video of it actually being bombed. I know there's speculation that it was some type of laser weaponry that is, our government and maybe a few other governments have. And the reason why I even mention that is there's some video of one of those these laser weapons being test fired, and the way the explosion and that kind of gas cloud that went out really fast at the Beirut explosion, they look very similar. So that one was kind of interesting, but for right now we're just going to call it an explosion, and try to bring you guys and gals up to date. Since this explosion, there has been a lot of protests and rioting in the streets. Thousands of people have been clashing with local police. Even to the point that the last I heard, that there's around 700 or so injuries of people being injured of clashing with the police. So there's quite a bit of civil unrest going on there. The Prime Minister and his entire cabinet has resigned in Lebanon. So the government basically has stepped down. There's a lot of chaos going on. And a lot of people might say, well, there's this explosion, because if you just read the mainstream news, if you just read it, you're like, well, why is there all this? Why are people protesting and rioting, and the government's resigning and everything because of this explosion? Well, there's a little bit more to the story. So basically, Iran has been by proxy kind of controlling Lebanon for a while through Hezbollah. They are the organization that's been in Iran, kind of doing the work of Iran. They've been in Lebanon doing the work for Iran. And most of the people in government do the bidding of Hezbollah, and Hezbollah has been using that port, which they control the ports and all the airports and seaports in Lebanon. And that particular port in that place that the explosion happened was in fact where they were storing and manufacturing weapons. That part may not necessarily be the official story, at least here in the United States, but it doesn't take much digging to find that that is in fact what was going on at that building, at that site where there was that explosion. So why is this important? Why is this important to us? Because this could really cause a major upset in the Middle East. This could very much disrupt it and just kind of cause a lot of problems. And those problems, especially because it's the Middle East, can ripple across the planet and affect us. And so I think that it's something that we should, at least have our eyes on and be aware of what's going on out there. Sorry, the sun came out behind that big cloud, and I don't know how it's looking on your end, but my screen, I can't hardly see myself. So I hope that you can still see me. Remember that Lebanon is it's on the northern border of Israel. And so that's why for Iran, Lebanon has been very important. They want to be able to have their weapons, their munitions, and their people as close to Israel as they can. And Beirut is about 260 miles from Jerusalem, so that's pretty doggone close. It's gotten really bad over there, and this is something that the news isn't really covering a whole lot. The dollar, the Lebanon pound, has lost a lot of its value and has very little purchasing power anymore. There's been a very large, especially since the explosion, but even before then, of Hezbollah intimidating and trying to push out Christians that live in Lebanon. They've been trying to buy up their land and intimidate them to get them out of the area and get them out of the country. A lot of the ports were being used to ship food and supplies and munitions over to Syria, supporting the Syrian government. So really, if you look at Lebanon, it's not just this little independent country. It's really been used as this port for terrorism and for violence throughout the Middle East, and it's still uncertain of who did it. I don't think that at least most people would believe that it was just an accident that this explosion happened. So I don't think that was the case. It does appear that it could be opposition to that. Who is it? I don't know. I mean, there's been fingers pointed at the U.S., fingers pointed at Israel, or within the within Lebanon to try to disrupt Hezbollah's power in Lebanon. That part is still uncertain, and I honestly can't tell you what my opinion is yet, because I haven't quite settled on which one it is. But the point is that there is definitely some unrest that's happening. It looks like that Lebanon is on the brink of a civil war, and if that happens, that's going to very much disrupt things in the Middle East, but it's going to disrupt politics here in the United States. Because Lebanon is going to be fought for by, Iran and Syria on one side, which of course the people that support them is going to be, Russia and China, and then the opposition is most likely going to fall on our side, and possibly Israel. So we've got an upcoming election. The president has already said that he would take care of Iran in 4 weeks if elected. I'm pretty sure he knows a lot more that's going on than we do. So while the media here in America is focused on this, exciting news that, Kamala Harris is picked as the vice president because it's such a shock. She's such a person of the people. And basically we have on the Democrat ticket, we've got two people that represent the exact opposite of what the left is trying to push down everyone's throats right now. We've got it's quite hilarious, but of course it's all pre-planned. But that's the news right now. That, and of course still, Black Lives Matter and coronavirus, and you got to wear a mask or you're just going to die if you don't wear a mask. But there's actually more going on in the news, and the thing in Lebanon is something that I've been kind of keeping an eye on, because I think it's going to become more important as it goes along. If Lebanon goes into a big civil war, I think it's going to disrupt things in the Middle East, and we'll see what happens. There's been a lot of just eerie, strange things that's been going on over in the Middle East and throughout the world, really, but especially the Middle East. And I think that this is the start of something big. And we need to keep an eye on it. And as far as from a prepper, what we can learn from it, much like what was happening in Venezuela, their dollars lost value. There's people literally starving to death in the country, not being talked about in the news. There's a lot of civil unrest. People, of course, have lost their homes and their businesses due to this explosion. So, it's going to push people to the extreme. Because what do they have to lose now? They've already lost their home, they've lost their businesses, many of them have lost family members. They say there's over 6,000 injured due to the explosion, over 200 dead, the last count that I saw. So when people are pushed to that extreme, they will do things that they normally would not do, because, well, what do they have to lose? And then now you've got pretty much confirmation that Hezbollah has been working in Lebanon and been controlling their government, and their government all resigns. I mean, it's leaving the country in a pretty precarious situation. And even though Lebanon may not be as important as, say, Saudi Arabia or Iran or Iraq in a lot of ways, but in some ways it is really important because of its proximity to Israel, its proximity to the Mediterranean coast. It's actually quite important because of its location. So I have a gut feeling that we could be, unless the international community, unless the people of Lebanon step up to the plate and do the things that's right, that they should do, we could definitely start seeing more violence happen. And, that's probably not a good thing, considering just the state of global affairs right now. It's like every country is right on the knife's edge, waiting for some other country to make the first move. And here we have this now happening in Lebanon. So don't just believe all the junk that's put out there on the news media, because, well, as we all know, most of it's slanted and faked, and it's just not the where to get your good news source, right? But anyways, I just wanted to bring it up because I really think that it's something that we need to be paying attention to, because if the media isn't paying attention to it, then it's probably something that we need to be watching. And it looks like things are going to start getting a little crazy over in Lebanon. It's been crazy for about a week now. If you're not aware of it, do some digging online. You can find it, and there's definitely other videos that are going to be more informative than mine when it comes to this subject. But I wanted to revisit it because I'd said I would, and things are happening just like I feared that they would when the explosion happened, knowing that Hezbollah had been working and still working in Lebanon. It's definitely going to disrupt things in that area, in that region, and that's just not something I think that the world is ready for right now with all the other craziness that's going on. So let me know what you think, and if you have any updated information. I don't have the luxury of constantly following the news all day long, so I know things change. But from the things that I have read, I think most of what I've reported is fairly accurate, but go ahead and correct me if I'm wrong. That's okay. All right, folks. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.